Hey guys, I'm Rick, and that is one big pile of bricks with our amazing guest, Craig. Woo! Hey. Look at that amazing crowd in the hotel.
Oh my God, it's beautiful.
Does it make you feel famous?
Oh, it's incredible. It's like I don't know where to start. It's incredible.
So explain to the people listening and watching at home what you do for a job.
All right, well,
this is a long story.
It's all going to sound really, douchey. But I write and I produce, and I've been in Hollywood most of my career, but I'm just a gigantic nerd. The bulk of my career, I spent 14 years at Marvel Studios. When I started, there were 7 employees. By the time I left, there were many thousands, and we were part of Disney. I've done cartoons. I've done comics. I produced the first 2 Thor movies, and then helped co-write the third, Ragnarok. The other thing I did was, anyone there has seen Logan, the little girl Laura who turns men's heads into bologna slices, I created her, and and since then I've worked in video games and other movies and TVs. I'm just a person who loves lots of nerdy shit.
So we're going to try and be careful that we don't breach any NDA stuff.
Oh yeah, no, of course.
Because I don't want you to get in trouble for anything.
Oh, trust me.
Because Marvel, no one wants to be the enemy of the.
Yes, I spent my whole life keeping secrets, so no problem. But at the end of the day, I'm just someone who grew up loving nerdy stuff and have been fortunate enough to make enough money to keep doing it professionally.
Now, we'll explain to everyone watching and listening at home, people think writers get paid a lot of money, but it's not true, right?
It just depends, right? Like, it depends on what you're doing. Again, I've done work in a lot of different places. Comic books, you do not get a lot of money. You can over time, and that's true for anything. If you work in animation and you're doing a great show like a Rick and Morty or an Avatar and you're a showrunner, there's a chance to make great money there. But it's all about where you're at in your career, what you're delivering, and what your role is on a show. When it comes to live action and movies, again, it all just depends. Like, what I made on Ragnarok is less than I made on other projects, but then some of those projects never made it to the theater.
Is that because you stopped working on Ragnarok at a certain point? Is that how it works?
Well, when I was producing the movies, I had a full-time gig overseeing that with lots of teams and crews. Yeah. And when you transition to writing, again, that wasn't my full-time job. So that I came in at the writing level on a feature where I was at. So my rate wasn't like my normal paycheck when I was a full-time Marvel employee.
Wow.
And then, with that success, you get to hopefully do better on the next gig, and that's what you're trying to do, is like show people what you can do. And I had a great partner that I've had on many projects named Chris Yost, who's a wild talent. And so that's what you're always doing. You're just trying to prove that you can do something great for whatever project you're on. And then the hope is on the next gig that gets you a bigger check and so on and so forth. But, like anything, it's, what's the last thing you did and how did it succeed?
It's a feast or a famine type deal, right?
Very much, very much. So you could have, a working on a movie, maybe you're working on a TV show. You gotta have a couple things going at all times because shows stop, projects might get canceled, and, only a handful of movies end up making it into theaters every year, and even less so nowadays. So you just never know. And you can't have those periods instead of having a couple projects where you don't have any. You're still chasing jobs. Yeah. And so, again, this is not a complaint. It's a blessing to do what I do. But yeah, when you're an independent person trying to work in this business, no matter what it is, there are those times where you're doing great, you got lots of things happening, and there's times where you're looking for the next gig like anybody.
All businesses are the same. So I'm the same, right? Like we're incredibly lucky to own a store that sells, obviously, Lego, one of the biggest products in the world.
Yeah.
But there's great times when it's great, and when it's not, it's not. There's that really weird sort of pattern that, we've got after COVID now, so the world's changing, and same with your position, right? COVID would have been a weird place. You can still write remotely, but it still makes it weird because you can't visualize your product in a setting.
Yeah, no, it's true. And again, before COVID, and especially when I was full-time at Marvel, you were always together. You were spending, 16, 18-hour days together. The pressure and the hard work that goes into making those movies is enormous, but the fact that you're surrounded by everyone putting their best into the thing and you're all together, really helps you get through those really intense periods.
Yeah.
So that was always a blessing, right? Like, moving from animation, I worked with maybe 25, 50 really amazing, talented people And then a lot of the work was done overseas with, again, amazing folks that I just didn't get to interact with. When you go to movies, all of a sudden it's times 100, and you're just meeting that many more wonderful, talented, incredible people. So I will say that I do miss some of that constant kind of contact, because it just kind of helps you in all ways to look around and look into the eyes of the people who are under the same kinds of pressures as you, and we're just there for each other. We're all just doing our best. And when you're on screens, you don't have that same kind of chemistry or camaraderie.
Yeah.
Again, it doesn't mean that people aren't they're any less amazing or talented, but there's just in my opinion, there is a certain amount of magic and meaning that comes out of the work when you're really in the trenches with folks. But that's how it's always been for me, and that's how I've always felt about it.
So were you around when the last two Avengers films were being made?
I was working on Ragnarok at that point, and I got to go into the room and see all of the pieces of paper and Post-its where the whole movie was put up, so you could walk from the beginning all the way to the end and see how the story was going to go. And
wow.
I got to see a lot of the secrets, because that was my whole life. You'd sit on things for 5 years
And not be able to say anything, right?
Right.
And you're sitting on this amazing piece of information.
Yeah.
That you're like, oh my god, all these characters are going to die, spoilers.
Yeah.
And then come back later, you can't.
No, and at that point though, that's always the deal, right? Anything you're working on, from the moment you're working on it, that's the promise you got to keep. Otherwise, you just ruin everyone's chances to succeed. So, it's a factor. I laugh off when people in any other companies or any other places give me NDAs. It's like, yeah, sure. It just doesn't faze me, because it's a foundational part of the job.
So we see it's not as important as you, but when we order Lego products, you're seeing certain scenes in certain movies.
Yeah, that's right.
And the time when we first started 10 years ago, you accidentally said something. You say something, and you're like, what? And then you're just and then you learn after time. But it's made me not look at the product when I order it, because things like Endgame, you're seeing all the I'll just tell the rep I don't want to see it. I just want to order and I want to walk away, because I don't want the surprise.
Yeah, no, that's true. Spoilers come in all kinds of ways, and products is a big part of it, especially Lego, because they're out there to really showcase.
And they're notoriously known for things getting leaked.
Well, but I gotta tell you, early on in Marvel, we had people at every possible
sneaky
point,
photo
everywhere, and again, we've done our best but it becomes unavoidable, because there are some portions of the fan base, and it is really, really minor, and it's very, very minuscule, but I think because of their longing to be a piece of it or a part of it, that they think this is their opportunity to somehow
that makes sense.
Be something of meaning in that. And again, for the bulk of the audiences, look, they're not going through Reddit and scouring. There's a good chunk that are, because they love it that much, but those people are all going to go and love it. Now, that's not saying putting a script up. No, that's not cool.
Yeah.
Taking real assets and doing that's a whole different thing. But I'm saying if you're,
I think there's a special place in hell for anyone that leaks a whole script.
And there should be.
Because that does so much damage.
Yeah, you're burning everybody.
Everybody. People forget that the industry is about money. Oh, yeah. The world revolves around money, so it needs to be a surprise to build up the hype, because when the surprise is taken away, you might lose 10% of your audience, and 10% to a company like Marvel is a lot of money.
That could be the difference of a thing getting made or not. And as much as, on the creative side, we always push back, and we always want to, get as much as we can for every dollar we're given, and there's never enough time. But yeah, that can torpedo the success of a project, which again, it immediately harms everybody involved in making the thing. And if it really does that kind of damage, you could end up losing a sequel of a great movie that you love.
Yeah.
And that's a real
Well, it's happening. So with Lego now, when they send you products, it's got your name. So if you take a photo, and the ones that don't have your name has a digital thing in it, so they can scan it and it has a special code hidden somewhere, so they know it's you.
Yeah.
They do that Elon thing, how Elon was leaking information through the company emails. but emailed 100 people 100 different emails with a space in certain places.
Oh, wow.
So you could catch, smart, right?
Really smart.
So then the person leaks it and he's like, well, that's the person. No, how do you know? It's like, well, yours is the only one that had 2 spaces here. Like, imagine hunting that down, right?
He is a smart guy.
Well,
he'll
get us to Mars.
Sure.
We might not see
hopefully in time.
We might not see it.
No.
But that's fine.
That's fine. His head will be there to go. And it's funny, thinking about the spoilers of it all, we have, or Marvel and Disney has some incredible folks that build the trailers.
Yeah.
And I always feel for those guys and gals, because they're cutting some of the biggest movies of the previous decade, and all of it's ruined for them, right? Like, they're just going through.
Yeah, so they're seeing, all the secret sauce, right?
All of it.
Unless they do, a sneaky thing where they're putting, with, I think it was Endgame, they would put in, Hulk in a place when there was no Hulk. You know how they, change stuff?
But even to do that, they're going through it all. Everything, they never get to see anything as a normal audience member ever does, so whatever Disney's making, whatever Marvel's making, they're all getting ruined because that's their job, is to now give
then you move, you just have no feelings towards the movie, right? Imagine, editing the No Way Home trailer, 3 Spider-Man, it's a big deal, right? So they're, trying to hide it.
Absolutely.
And you just be like Tom Holland and just reveal all the movie secretly the whole time he's getting interviewed.
Right, and trying to keep that secret as much as they could. And it was not well kept, but even the people who were positive that those guys were going to show up, look, when they walked out, it was fantastic, dude. What a moment.
Well, so you've obviously walked away now from Marvel and you're working on a bunch of different stuff. When you've, say, written a film for Marvel and you see it on the big screen, what's the feeling knowing that the stuff you put on paper is now on the screen? Is it still an emotional feeling, or is it oh yeah, there's my work?
Yeah, oh my gosh.
I know it's a loaded question.
No. Look, it all comes down to how did it turn out, right?
Yeah.
Thor was a real surprising delight. Ken Branagh came to us and he had this. He put all this imagery out of just this galactic, spectacular, huge cosmic storyline.
I don't calling it was a pretty movie. Visually appealing.
Oh yeah.
And that's rare these days because, I don't like to say it, but some companies like Marvel was the cookie cutter. This is how we do it. Hero, big bad, explosion, bang.
Yeah. Look. We had Bo Welch, our production designer, was amazing, and he did a tremendous job for us. Everybody involved did so much great work. But Ken had this amazing, huge saga that he wanted to do. But at the end of it, he said, "But it comes down to fathers and sons, right?" So he took this. He made it feel huge, but at the end of it, the story was really, really small and intimate. And and then he brought Tom Holland to us. Not Tom Holland. Tom Hiddleston to us.
Yeah. I just agreed for no reason.
Sorry. We got a couple times. Forgive me. Hiddleston, don't get mad. But from the moment we saw his test read, it's dude, this guy can be amazing.
Yeah.
Ken wanted him for Thor. We're I'm not sure, but
I don't know if he could have pulled off.
Well,
Thor, and I don't know if
you can see it. He did a full test.
I saw it, and I was I don't know, because I don't know if it's because Chris is Australian. I'm it's an Aussie thing, but it's going to reach a point where he will be recast sometime, right? Because that's what happens with characters after all, they age out or whatever.
Yeah, again, who knows? The secrets that are being held now, I'm not a part of, and
I would
those
love
that
to
I might
see
know
an old school Thor, an older Thor just being
who knows what's going to happen with any of those roles, but the fact that movie landed and everyone did so great and it was really well received was a really moment of pride. Dark World was a tough movie to make. There was some tremendous success that we pulled out of that film, but that was a
Dark World was I don't no disrespect, was a weird movie.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel. Marvel has a feeling, and they've got Kevin does a great job. I'm saying he's my friend, but he's not my friend. But he has this, I call it the secret sauce. It's like the McDonald's Big Mac sauce, right? It's the secret sauce. He knows how to do it. He knows how to do it well. And I think with the complaints that are happening now with Marvel, I think there's more outside interference than inside interference, changing certain things.
Yeah. Again, the current state and what's going on, that's not a part of my world now. What I'll say is, of all the characters we were working at, Thor is the least like the feel of Marvel Classic, right? He's a god. He sits above the audience. He's just not the everyman. Even Tony Stark is just a man with means and a brilliant mind.
Yeah.
He was a god. And so, again, we hit some real magic throughout the first movie. We were pushing towards a different direction on the second. And again, there were moments with Frigga and the boys and the motivations to get them back together that I think was really successful and meaningful. But, we were still trying to find our way. And everyone involved was doing their best to kind of find out, what's the tone and what's the version of this story that'll really bring it to life in the ways everybody wants to see, including everybody from the actors and all involved. And then, then when Taika came and he was the one who really understood what this needed. And so, it took us a few films to kind of perfect that journey. And again, it all started with Ken and what he put forward. But, so anyways, this is a very long-winded, wandering answer. But look, if something is fantastic, it is really rewarding to be a proud part of it, right?
Yeah.
And anything I've done, I'm proud of the part I played, but you are a small piece of an absolute group project. And, when Logan came out, I got to meet with
masterpiece.
And again, James Mangold and all involved. And I got to meet with James, and we had some great conversations afterwards, and I was incredibly touched because, he said the tone in the world and the place of where the film is set was really inspired by the fantastic book by Mark Millar, Old Man Logan.
Yeah.
But he said, but the story is really about Laura, and the character he put on screen was so very truthful to who she was. And if it wasn't Mangold at the helm, there's no chance that she would have been all that she was supposed to be.
Was just like $1 million. It's
yeah.
Just like,
if you pull back on her, if she's stabbing feet and cutting open doors, that's not who she was. She was born and bred to kill. And the first time she had ever escaped that environment and that life was when she meets Logan. And so that needs to be expressed. And he's so beautifully, he is the reason that she has such a huge fan base. And I will always, always, always be grateful that he just, brought her into the MCU or the larger storyline.
Well, now it's the MCU, right? Because it's been swallowed.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Hopefully she'll show up. But again, I'll always be grateful. The first time I saw that trailer and I knew she was going to premiere, I woke up at 6 a.m. because I knew it was going to drop.
Oh, because you would have been refreshing, right?
Oh yeah, and I was sat in a chair and just cried. And then the kids eventually got up for school, and my wife told me I was scaring them, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I just hit repeat again. But it was just so exciting. So, you can never take full credit for anything, and the things that are the best have always come from the hard work of others. So
I don't know if you remember this. You actually gave me a minifigure. Do you remember that? I remember that. There's a custom-made Laura. I have it at work on my desk. I should have brought it with me, but things forget.
Trouble with that. No.
I said I would keep it with me, but I didn't, and it's back at work.
Yeah, I never expected Lego to make that figure, especially not after Logan, and I was just such a fan. What I love about the minifigure is it's a little bit like a dunny in the sense that it's this very simplified version of a potential character, and if you can distill it down to really what it is,
it's beautiful.
You can fit it all on that space.
It's very rare I say this about custom Lego minifigures because it is also a very touchy subject.
Oh yeah,
of Lego,
of course.
I totally get it.
And I don't want to.
It is what it is. But the way it's designed, I don't want to name drop who printed it because you don't want in trouble later. Just credit to where credit's due. That thing is because I found it again the other day. I was going from a drawer. I was like, oh my god, I still love this. This is awesome. Because I had some other things that you created as a side project. And I might get this wrong, but they were Tiny Joes, is that right? Mighty Joes?
Oh, yeah. Micro Joes. Yeah.
Micro Joes, yeah. And that was a Lego project that you started that hopefully will come back in the future.
Yeah. I mean, again, I really love how much you can deliver. And again, being an action figure collector most of my life, and Transformers and so many toys, right? The boxes and the figures, they just take up your whole life. You're always on the verge of collector, hoarder.
It's hoarder when things start falling on you. I think that's the fun.
So okay, full-time hoarder. And it's just it just swallows up your life, right?
Man, I own a Lego shop. You're talking to the wrong person. I
But
have so much stuff.
but if you but like I have those cases from Lego, right? And I have so many characters that I love. And I can, it's like looking at a movie poster or a Marvel Universe poster and it's got 500 characters in it. Like I can put like 60 characters in there and just get so much enjoyment from there where that would normally take an entire bookshelf.
Yeah.
If it was, 6-inch, 7-inch figures. And again, I'm not poo-pooing anyone's collection. It's just when you've gone through so many and it's just, again, because I don't do anything lightly, Legos allow me to collect in mass without having to sacrifice every square inch of my life to do it. And I also have a thing with dust. So having cases that I can put on top and enjoy them and not know I have to
Enemy
dust.
number one is the dust of Lego. It's why you have employees like I do when it's quiet. Can you dust the Lego at work?
Because again,
I just
you
can't
want it to
deal,
be
man,
nice
like-
and pristine because that really...
Well, it's one of those things. Now, I don't know if you remember. Do you remember how we met?
I thought I reached out to you because I was searching down some figures that were pretty hard to find, and I got them on your website, and you were fantastic. But maybe I'm misremembering that first meeting.
Yeah, it was like the Citizen Brick product.
That's right.
And then I ended up
That's right.
selling you like
You did.
nearly everything I had. I was like, hey,
That's right.
Joe is Joe, but like Citizen Brick, obviously, I was like, here, take all this stuff. And that's how it was just two random dudes talking on the
That's
internet.
right. My scouring of the internet led me to you, and you were an absolute delight. And I bought everything that you had.
Hashtag blessed, isn't that what they say?
Yeah, no,
Kids these
dude.
days.
But it's so true, and that's one of the best things. Like, look, like Comic-Con, right? It's the passions you have that bring people together, and I had only just begun to discover, kind of like rediscover Lego and my love of it now, whether it's all proper or a mixture of some fans, making some things within. Look, that's about passion and love and a tremendous product, which is Lego. It all begins and ends with them. So that's the real point here. But just like going to Comic-Con and meeting fans that I'm one of and that we might both love, and we're meeting our creators, like I'll always be the guy with comic books in my hand. Like I'm always that guy. And sometimes you get your heart broken and your favorite artist is a jerk, but I have never met people on this side of the collecting that I am still very much, who aren't like Comic-Con. San Diego is the nicest place in the world for 4.5 days every year because.
So do you have to sit and get tickets like everyone else, or you're a big part
Well, when
of it?
I was at Marvel,
You just get
we got
tickets,
them
right?
every year.
Wow.
But I went 7 years before I ever joined Marvel, so there was a run where I was almost there for every year for 20 years, right?
Wow.
And when I was going for Marvel, when I first started there, the biggest day was Saturday, and that was 65,000 people, and that was a lot.
If you think that's a lot of people in a space.
Yeah. Now, preview night is over 85,000, and the weekend is like pushing 135.
Yeah, because it like breaks San Diego when it's on, right?
100%.
Like it's just like
The
town's not fit for it, right?
It's like Taylor Swift and Harry Styles doing like an intimate, like the hotels are gone, the passes go like crazy, and then they all get sold on eBay. It's nuts. Like it's crazy. I still enjoy it. I go only when I have work though now, because the days of walking the floor and like checking out all the cool stuff.
Yeah.
It's Times Square from the moment you get there to the end on Sunday.
We did, so back in Australia we had our version of Comic Con, and I'll never forget, we were selling at the one that Stan Lee was at, right?
Oh yeah.
The first time he was in Australia, right?
Wow.
And it's probably the first time I've cried when I met a man, right? Like, because he's something special, rest
Oh,
in peace
yeah.
now, but like,
Yeah.
to meet him was like he's a god, right?
Uh-huh.
And I said to my wife when we were signing up to do it to sell, we only had this little booth, like the standard little booths. I'm like, let's just take like the Wolverine Lego set with Logan, and we'll take some other things and Magneto, and just Marvel. And she's like, why? I'm like, Stan Lee. And she's like, really? I'll never forget. We sold it was something like $150,000 worth of stock, right? In 2 days.
Wow.
My wife Caroline got upset because I disappeared for like 4 hours. Because I knew the owners at the time and got to go to the green room to meet him, and I was like, oh my god, like, you know what to say, you've probably met him,
Yeah.
It's a really weird, like you're a big part of my life. It's kind of weird because I don't know you, and he just hugged me and said, it's okay, and I was like, oh my god, and to walk away thinking that someone that is that big is still, like, normal.
Oh yeah, look, so I got to introduce Stan Lee twice on the set of the first Thor, and then
Wow.
yeah, he came to where the hammer had fallen on Earth, and
Oh, cool.
he did his pickup truck scene. So, he gets there, and again, it is like bone quiet. No one moves. It is an honor for all
Yeah.
involved. To again, for me to be able to just announce him and introduce him. Not, everyone knows who he is, but just to say that he's here and everyone gets to clap. It was fantastic, and I had another experience where I got to do that for J. Michael Straczynski, a brilliant writer who also had some huge impactful stories. He was also at the Hammer, so we got to have some of these greats come and try to pull the Hammer. And then the other one that I got to do was we had Walt Simonson and his wife Louise, brilliant comic book writer and artist, and a brilliant writer, and then their editor, who were doing the books that the only Thor books that I ever adored, which were written by him and drawn by him and his editor at the time. So I got to introduce all three of them, and they were all sitting at the table at the end of the first movie, and they got to eat among the gods. They were gods eating among the. So it was an incredible time to be able to introduce those folks. But then back to Stan Lee. One of the Comic Cons I was at, I don't remember at what point it was, I got to watch Stan be kind of taken through the crowd for a signing.
Oh, dude, that's cool.
And it was like, it took 12 security guards to create a bubble around him, and like just the crowd knew he was there, and it was, again, no one dogpiled him, but it was like watching the currents change on the ocean. It was just incredible to see how everyone stopped and all wanted to just get an eye on him.
When he arrived at Oz Comic Con and he walked in the room, it was like packed, not San Diego packed, but it was packed, and the room went silent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very rare you meet someone that makes such a big impact in your life that can make a whole room of like 20, 30,000 people just go quiet.
Yeah, it was funny because even when we were making those early movies and then moving into the back half of the first 10 years, hearing the crowds grow in their like, it's kind of fun at the beginning to see Stan Lee, that's kind of a funny gag. But then it became like a moment that everyone waited for in every film.
Yeah.
Like when he was there, and it was a cheer moment, right? So it just became such a meaningful event to just how's he going to be, what's he going to do in this film, and to see him. And I'll tell you, when Spider-Verse came out and Stan got to react to the death of Peter, and that was, I believe, the last thing he did before he passed, there is a beauty and a power to that chokes me up as I talk about it, but it's like there's something incredibly special for the most, and again, he's one half of that creative team, but for the character that so defined what would begin a huge legacy, and again, one shared with many, many incredible talents, and then to kind of see it to the end of the line was, I wish all of the creatives that made these characters could share in that kind of a moment and celebration, but it was very meaningful to at least see one of them have that.
Well, and that's the thing, like when I found out he died, I was like, nothing really stops you when you're working, but I stopped and was like, ran and got Carolyn. I was like, Stan Lee died. Like, what? Sorry, what the fuck? Like,
yeah.
And we're all like, what? And then, there's been stories that have come out, unfortunately, after he's passed, some stuff that went on in the business and whatever. Like some stuff that was happening in Australia with one of his managers. It was a bit crazy. But, thankfully he got to see Marvel be as big as it did, considering it went broke and there was all sorts of financial issues. But imagine the feeling, him being, how old he was, seeing this thing he created X amount of years ago still being so big.
Yeah, no, it's incredible.
It's like, no one would really see that in their lifetime, creating a character when you're like 20, 25, and it's still being as massive and making such a big impact.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. And again, as someone who's been very blessed to be able to give back to the worlds that changed mine, it is always a place of just pride and meaning. But I will always say that I wish the people that put those characters forward, not everyone has to have Stan's level of fame and success, but I would love to see us get to a place where the people who put those lives out there build those stories that will, be the things that inspire the films and the shows. And Like none of that exists without the characters and the stories that were.
Well, that's
were
the
put
thing. If you
down.
look at Laura,
Mhm.
like she's massive. Like when I found out you created it, I was like, holy shit, this is fucking awesome. Like because you know, comic books as kids has always been a big part. Any kid that was traditionally bullied back when we were younger, now it's different, obviously.
Mhm.
Because now it's like the flavour of the month, to be a comic book nerd.
Mhm.
But when we were kids and you had to hide playing with Lego or like comic books, like it's such a big change now seeing how the world is like, and you made such a big impact. Your impact is not as great, obviously, as Stan Lee because you've been around a thousand years.
Not at all.
But like you've had a big hand in a lot of these big stories.
Look, and Len Wein is the man who created Wolverine, and when he passed, I said there is no Laura without Len Wein because Wolverine had to come first, and then you have greats like Frank Miller and Chris Claremont who continued to just kind of expand on that tremendous character, and Barry Windsor Smith, the Weapon X story, like so. Again, like my buddy Chris Shostin and I, when we approach any of these projects, it's like first thing is do no harm, right? Like don't screw up what you loved and gave you this chance. Now, how do you try to make the next meaningful step in those journeys? Again, without ever doing harm in it. And so, it was a blessing without the artists who did the two kind of origin stories. Billy Tan did our first miniseries, which told her story, and then Mike Choi and Sonia Obach, who was our colorist and the artist team. Like, without those folks to visualize the story the way they did, like, none of it would have happened. So again, we were incredibly blessed to have those opportunities, and we worked with a lot of other people. And again, it is so deeply embedded in us and so much a part of us. So, even as I talk about it, and it may just sound horrible to listen to, I apologize, but it's like, it is very meaningful. And when it is, again, created by these amazing talents in such a beautiful way, it's something that just, you'll never not be proud of, you'll never not look back on and be so grateful for. Again, my hope is, as things continue, that we find a way to reward those who create these things or continue to create new characters, because the money will come. And look, I'm not saying I'm Stan Lee, not by any margin. I'm not even any of the greats I just mentioned. But all of us have given a lot. And it would be great if those things that do create a lot of money somehow find their way back to our families, right? Like, it's not even about me. It's just, or the other people.
Problem when you see a machine make $1 billion movie, and like, not pointing out anybody, because just overall, and you're only getting $5,000 or $10,000 is not exactly enough to feed a family for a year, in reality, right?
Yeah, and again, and it's like I wish I had the answer to what it would be, but look, obviously, the deals are what they are, and
I think writers need to be paid more, and I know
I'll take it.
I know we had this conversation earlier when we had dinner, but like, that's one of the main reasons why I don't like James Corden. Like, that's the main reason. Going into being at the writer's strike, saying, look, I don't think they need to be paid more. But hang on, man, you're getting paid $20-30 million a year. Like, it doesn't hurt to pay a livable wage, especially in places like LA, where I can tell you it's expensive. Like, it's not cheap to live here.
And look, everybody's hurting. Again, it's tough to stand on any soapbox and kind of cry. But yes, look, you can't direct a stack of blank pages. You can't act a stack of blank pages.
Well, it all starts with the writer.
Yeah.
Like, and if you don't, like, not specifically you, but if you write an average story, the movie can come off as average, but when you write a great story, and we've seen this over the multiple things you've worked on, like, everything that you worked on has been amazing. Like, you go,
I appreciate that. And when I say that,
you're looking from a creative standpoint where you're like, it could have been better, but I'm like, wow.
Yeah, and again, and I never kind of make that comment, because what I never want to do is disparage all the hard work and the tremendous people that were involved. That's never the case.
There's like,
you have successes, you have less so, And again, it's impossible to, I guess unless you're Cameron, it's very hard to always hit a home run. We're always trying for it. None of us go out there and go, let's just take this one. Let's take it easy on this one. But. Yes.
But there's outside factors that the general population never going to realise. Like a TV show, like, we'll use Walking Dead as an example. There was a season of The Walking Dead where they basically filmed the whole season on a farm. And they didn't do much outside the farm because the writers were on strike and there wasn't enough money for the writers, even though they just had a hit TV show. Now, I find that as a shockingly shit excuse because, like, if you can afford to pay an actor $10 million or $100 million, whatever kickback they're getting later, like, even if it's set up like that for the writers, that there's got to be some sort of financial reward, because at the end of the day, if there's a bad movie, the actor goes, oh well, and bunts us to another crappy project, but the writer's the one who the studio goes, like, what's going on here? Like, everything flows downhill. It doesn't, like, it's not the idiot executive that makes a decision that goes, let's make a movie, let's rush it, let's cut all this thing that gets in trouble. It's everyone down below that helps build this amazing movie.
Yeah. And that's the point, right? Again, no one under any circumstance, if they're on the crew and team, and at any point, like, again, from the people who are supporting the crew and team, like craft services, to the people who are delivering materials, to the director, like, everybody involved is all working their ass off to make the thing great. Situations change. We're always under a pressure cooker, and when you're on that side of it, you can never, like, look at the audience and go, well, they got to realize there was a writer's strike, and this, like, no, that's not their fucking problem. Like, it's just like if you were going to a retail place, and I did lots of years with retail and customer service, like, my bullshit is my problem. They come into that store, it's not my now gift to, like, act like they're bothering me, because screw it. As soon as they cross the threshold, they are my problem, not the other way around. And so, again, just like the way you approach story or any project, like, and Kevin was always great about this too. No matter if we were at the first movie or the third movie or whatever we were doing, you never put the onus on the audience to have seen the last two movies. And again, it's not to say you're going to rehash what came before, but you want everyone to have a fair shot at entering that film with no knowledge and getting a great experience at it. Obviously, if you've been along for the ride, you're going to get a heck of a lot more out of it. But every time you put something out there has to be a chance for someone to just walk in cold and just be entertained and delighted. And that's the beauty of it too, right? I always like the fact that the movies told one kind of a story, and the games were another, and the comics were another, because I don't think, and this again, my view, that everything needs to be on the same track.
Yeah.
Because you have different audiences, different things that people are seeking out, and if you keep those things truthful to the characters and their stories, but the experiences are different and lean into what best serves that entry point, right? If it's a game, it's about people leaning forward and really taking on those roles. If it's a movie, it's about sitting back and being wowed and loving it. If it's a comic, it's really it's a 50-50 split. It's, you have this amazing art and hopefully great words, but the moments between panels all happens inside the mind of the reader. So those transitions, that movement, those explosions, those voices are all being cast and created in the cruise of the audience member. And that's why, again, of which I am, hardcore comic book nerds back in the day, they really come with these films tough. But, like, we can never do better than you, dude. You had that experience. You cast it perfect. You heard those moments. Like, it is perfect for you. Our attempt was never to try to outdo what you formed in your mind and in your heart, loving these characters. That's a losing endeavor. Our hope was to get as close to the things that made you care and try to preserve that to its highest level, and then present them in a way so that the fans of tomorrow can find these characters, fall in love with them, and then 10 years come here in Comic-Con and tell us what idiots we are. That's the job, right? Like, that's the job. And I would even tell fans of Comic-Con, I'm like, look, you guys can bitch, but we all have your money. We're spending it right now. And I say that because they're spending my money too. Like, all right. That's the deal, right? Yeah. We're going to bitch, we're going to moan, but we're going to be there, right? I spent my whole life in comic shops and in heated fights, and because we love it. And if people didn't feel that strongly, and I'm talking about fighting about characters and moments and how things could be delivered, not people, right? It's not about, as soon as you get personal, like, I don't know a comic book fan or a superhero fan or any fan of any genre that I love that does that. If that's where you're at, you
I
are
found
not
that a
someone I
bit
can
weird
relate
with
to.
like Captain Marvel, like how the hate around Captain Marvel. I find it odd. I like the movie. I think it's great because I think it's hard. We don't really have strong female superhero characters for girls, right? Like, so when we had Captain Marvel, I was like, this is awesome for my nieces. I just found the hate around Brie Larson really weird. Like, it didn't make sense to me. Like, some people are like, oh, I heard this, but what you're hearing is not from the person that was there. You don't know. You weren't. I wasn't in the room. You weren't in the room.
Right, and again, any of those voices, and they are all, like, again, unfortunately, every fan base has a very small number of very loud and nasty people who just, try to take swings and make things personal, and I don't know why, right? But they are not fans. They are not the people who go to these spots and interact with their peers. They are there to get nasty and try to hurt people. And, like, again, I have lots of characters I don't like, and again, my buddy Chris Yost and I, like, he is a Scott fan. I am a Wolverine fan. He is a Jean Grey fan. I am an Emma Frost fan. So we would have at it and fight about which is better or worse, and that comes out in the work. But again, it's fighting about our passions and this made-up stuff that means a lot to us.
Yeah.
But it is bullshit. It's when it becomes personal, or the second that you don't connect with a character, whether it be the Miss Marvel that you mentioned or any other, like the DC Marvel of it all, like, that is just garbage. That is you just getting personal, and you're not even fighting over the thing that fans
Why don't
will
they like
argue over.
attack actors and stuff? I find it really weird.
No, it
like,
just starts personal and it gets worse from there.
and then it starts getting like the bottom feeder, like the real dirty stuff that you just like.
But it starts at the bottom, and then they just cut through the bedrock and just keep going down. And I've even seen question posed, from certain, pop culture news outlets, and it's like, you are like, this is such a loaded question. The second
But
you
this
put
is
this
what
out
drives like the wedge, and in reality, we're lucky to have movies that Marvel are producing, because if it didn't go the way it did and Disney didn't buy it out, we probably wouldn't have them, or we would have them, but not in as big way we have them now, because there's no billion-dollar backing company just pumping out movies, right?
Here's what I'll say. Kevin is the one who put us on this path. He was the one who said, if we don't make our own movies, we can't control our own destiny. We can't do anything, so we need to make our own movies. And he's the one who convinced Ike to let us chase down the funding to get the first two movies made. I believe we were perched where we were because we were on a hell of a trajectory, and I believe that would have continued because Kevin and the incredible people that he brought into this company and continues to, you cannot put enough praise on him, and at the end of the day, he's a tremendous person. So the great thing is, the guy who has created so much and done so many wonderful things with so many incredible talents is also a tremendous human being, so that's a hell of a win for all of us. The biggest loss for me is I've known him so long, I don't get to see him as much, and if that guy never made one movie, he was just always a fucking swell guy. So he's just a good
It's good
person.
to know that someone as big as him hasn't let the ego.
He hasn't changed at all.
That's
He is
good to hear.
impervious to the whispers in the ears and stuff like that. He is someone who was born to make movies. From the moment I met him, he has been a force of nature, and I've been in editing rooms with him, and I'm really, really, like, one of the few things I will openly brag about is I'm very good with story, and I'm very good with structure, and I can really kind of help just really maximize the meaning of stuff, and I really like to go for it. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but it's a sense and something that I've worked really hard on from going back to being a dungeon master, right? It's just what I did. And you had mentioned earlier, like, when I was a kid, I loved comics. They were not fucking cool. So I was always trying to pitch why they were.
That stuff, and then you're like arguing with people because they're picking on you.
But you can't fight with them. No, you have to convince them why and get them to open those pages. So it was always like, be a salesman. And little did I know that, like, that nerd trying to show people, like, you are missing out. You don't understand what's in these pages, because if you did, you would not be saying these things. And that's what the rest of my life ended up being, is like taking the things that I've always loved since I was 12 and finding a way to, with countless others who are doing a tremendous job, and getting a chance to share them in a way that those who would never pick up a comic or a game controller or watch a cartoon will roll the dice once And if we can just grab them in the first 10, 15 minutes, we got them. And again, fortunately, more often than not, that was the case. And again, I take very little of that credit, but it was amazing to watch the shift. And then getting back to the whole fighting of like fans and that kind of stuff, like every time a movie comes out, whether it be DC or an independent, like Wanted, like we want all of those films to succeed because the fans or audiences don't know what Marvel is or what DC is. Yes, the hardcore fans do, but most don't know if Spidey and Batman are in the same universe or not. And again, it's not their job to. So if a movie succeeds, it pushes the whole industry up. It helps us all. If a movie struggles or fails, it hurts everybody. So never once have we ever rooted for anyone to do anything but succeed, because we want this to be a genre that continues to reinvent itself and show how wide it can go and how deep the stories can be. None of us win when anybody stumbles, and we take no pleasure in it, and we obviously don't like it when we're on the side of those who can be pointed at for not hitting the mark. So that whole small, loud, nasty section out there that just must exist because, it's a math equation. You're just going to get that. They are not fans. They never have been. And what they're bitching about has nothing to do with the work being done or the stories shared.
Like sad people complaining. I think you have to be really incredibly sad in yourself to want to project that onto someone else.
For sure.
Because especially in the state of the world's not in a great place. Pandemic and all that other stuff that's going on in Europe. It's better to be positive.
For sure.
I know I can be a negative person. You probably can as well.
Oh, for sure.
We'll have a bad run, but it's just a weird place. But I think what's going to happen with, James Gunn moving across, I think that's going to repair a lot of, I call it trust with comic book fans.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that I've disliked about DC is how quickly they've dropped a Batman and bring in a new one, and now they've dropped another one. It's constantly changing where you can't get the kid in me to love a character and be invested. Because if you love Christopher Nolan's Batman, you love Christopher Nolan's Batman.
For sure.
But then they're chopping and changing, and I think it's hard for the general kid now to keep up with what's happening with Batman or other characters. I think once James, like you said, we were talking about it earlier, gets his golden touch and just cleans it up, it's going to be a lot better.
Yeah, look, and again, there's a lot of movies that they've done that I've loved. Going back to Keaton's.
I liked Batman, so as Ben Affleck, I liked him. A lot of people didn't, but I thought he was violent, and that's what Batman needed.
Yeah, but look, I'll go all the way back to Tim Burton's Batman, and that's I'm very excited to see again when Flashpoint comes out.
Oh my god, it's gonna be so good.
And my buddy Jeff Johns, who I've known for over 2 decades, he created that story and he changed the DCU and oversaw that in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of excitement that I think is coming. And when you talk about James Gunn, he is one of the nicest people I've ever met, second only to Kevin. He is someone who could not love or give more of himself to it. I think in a lot of ways he shares a lot with Kevin. And the things that he's already done.
I think it's reflective when you hear Kevin go, he's going to be good. And it's weird, right? Because people expect, DC versus Marvel,
But they shouldn't. That's the point I'm making. Kevin has never rooted against
And you just hear him, he's I wish James all the best. He's still involved with Guardians.
Yeah.
He knows what's going on. I don't care. He's got this stuff sorted. And it's good to see him out and about, at premieres, being together.
Yeah.
Even though, there's this weird imaginary rivalry now that he's jumped across.
But it's the best kind, right? Now you'll have a situation where James will be out there raising the bar, and Marvel has never tried to do the same with every film, their project, but it's great to just know you're going to have a tremendous player in this ongoing storytelling journey, and James is amazing, and the things he's picked are awesome. The books and the storylines he's going after are wildly diverse. They all speak to, or big chunks speak to what a brilliant mastermind Grant Morrison is, and some others that I just love for those stories. So there are some incredible stories that are going to be brought forward, and I'm just excited for it. And I think, like I said, Kevin will be right there and be cheering him on and want the best for him, because we're not in a competition. We're in this together.
Well, I think that's the most positive note to end a podcast on, right? Yeah. No swearing. Oh, there's a lot of swearing.
Sorry,
that's fine.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Content warning. Jason put a content warning. But I appreciate meeting up with you finally in person. We talk over the internet, and it's weird when you meet internet friends because you don't know if they're going to be like good people.
Yeah, but we have been friends for a long time, and it was exciting to, dude, like.
I didn't realise, but I was about 10 minutes from your house.
It's true.
When I was at Universal.
That's right.
And
you were in the valley where I live,
and
then you're like, let's do dinner tomorrow night, and then you came to Disneyland, which is an hour and 20 minutes with no traffic. An hour and 45
I feel like
with
there's
traffic.
a lot of complaints when I didn't know, but that's always the way.
Well, I still had to drive, and all that is still true. But no, dude, you're again. It is a wonderful example of another one of my nerdy passions who led me into the life of a stranger who was a tremendous.
Not a weird dude.
No,
I appreciate the nice things because I know like. The Lego community, like the comic community, can be very diverse and very, subjective to what goes on in the world. Some people don't like it, some people like it,
yeah.
And I appreciate the nice comment. You're a great dude. Like,
hey man,
it's
when it's real fans and they love that kind of stuff. Like I'm telling you, it's like a person's good if they own a dog, right? And maybe if you don't like dogs, sorry, but it's like there's just certain things that you have a very good shot at meeting someone great. And again, if people love things that are often toys or things that children enjoy, it means there's a good chance that there's a part of you that hasn't been forced to grow up. And I think if we can keep any of the parts of us that are filled with that hope and that joy and can hold on to it, I think that just helps us all have a better shot at getting through the times when it's like, it just sucks to be an adult.
Well, it does. Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, pleasure.
I'll put your Instagram link so you can be Instagram famous.
Yeah, I'm really lacking, but again, it's a pleasure to be here and
I appreciate
in front of this beautiful painting.
Beautiful painting of the ocean.
It really captures California.
It really captures. I'm Rick James Briggs.
Yeah. This is what we're always chasing. This painting, like everything we've ever done. This is what we're trying.
I don't know how to surf, but I'm fat enough to float on the water, so that's fine. Thank you so much, Craig. Remember to watch, listen, subscribe, blah blah blah, all that stuff.
Yeah, and go to Rick James Brick, man.
I said it wrong, but that's fine.
God damn it! I've been buying from him for 7 years, and if I could go, I would have been there. But I do get to watch all of your store releases, and I love it. So look,
thanks, man.
You're a tremendous dude, and thanks for. I'm sorry.
Jason used that clip. Awesome. Thanks, man.